Now, as I was working along here, I noticed that I missed a sliver of background. Notice between the staff and the statue's right forearm, right in there. Now, sometimes this happens. You're working along and you miss a tiny piece of the background. Or sometimes, you're flipping through a magazine or you're surfing around on the web and you notice that someone else missed a tiny sliver of background. You start to get an eye for this stuff. So anyway, all I'm going to do here just very quickly is use the quick selection tool to go ahead and select that piece of background. Okay, perfect. So we want to continue on here. We want to pull this statue off of the background. Now, what we could do, this is one option, and I'm going to blast this past you, is I'm going to hit the delete key on my keyboard. And when I hit the delete key, I get the fill dialog box showing up. Now, in previous versions of Photoshop, what would happen is we wouldn't get a fill dialog box. The marching ants would simply get filled with white. Well, now inside Photoshop CS6, we get the fill dialog box, allowing us to choose what we want to fill our selection with. So the default is content aware, which you might want to try. It's a little bit weird and wild. Go for it. Or we could use our history, which is pretty cool, or black or white or whatever. Or we also have foreground and background. So I'm going to choose my background color, all right? And then go ahead and click on OK. And what happens for me, at least, is the entire background, all of the marching ants, my selection, gets filled with white because white is set as the background color down at the bottom of my toolbox. Now, this is all fine and well if this is what I was after, but this isn't what I was after. I don't want my statue to be on a solid white background. I actually want to put another photograph behind the statue. So this is no good. And this, of course, ties back to the layers panel because don't forget, we're working with a background layer. And as I said not too long ago, nothing can appear behind a background layer or below a background layer. Okay, a background layer is flat. It's a flattened image. So inside the layers panel, we can actually work with a variety of different layer types. We have regular layers, which we actually haven't seen yet. And we also have background layers, and we know a little bit about background layers already. And there's a whole smattering of other layer types that we can work with. So what I want to show you here is how to take our background layer and convert it to a regular, normal, run-of-the-mill Photoshop layer. How do I do that? Well, all I'm going to do is double-click on this guy inside the Layers panel. And I'm presented with the New Layer dialog box, and it's asking me for a name. Now, I have to stress that you name your layers because, again, you'll wind up with 8, 10, 12, 15 layers, 20 layers inside your documents, and you'll go, why did I just use the default naming layer 0, layer 1, layer 2, layer 3? Which one's the statue, right? So properly name your layers and you'll save yourself a lot of heartache. So anyway, I'm just going to name this guy properly, and I'm going to go ahead and click on OK. And notice now, it's no longer a background layer. That little lock icon I meant to point out, he's gone now as well, and it simply says statue, right? So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to press the delete key on my keyboard, and we don't get the fill dialog box. Instead, our marching ants are filled in with this gray and white checkerboard pattern. What's that all about? Well, the gray and white checkerboard pattern, if you're brand new to Photoshop, by the way, you might find it distracting, but this is Photoshop's way of telling us that we have transparency. What that means is that there's no pixels inside the checkerboard pattern. In other words, we don't have solid white anymore. We don't have the background, the original background that the statue was originally on. We now have nothing inside our marching ants. And that's exactly what we want because we want to fill this checkerboard pattern with another photograph. That's how that works. I hope that makes sense for you. And we'll see this more and more as we work along inside the Layers panel.